I'm in trouble, not the kind that makes headlines or brings guards running down the halls of the palace. This is quieter than that, more dangerous. I'm in trouble because every decision I make still bends toward you, even when I pretend it doesn't. The crown sits heavy tonight, not because of power, but because you're not here to see the man it's crushing. I speak your name only in my head now, like a crime I keep committing without witnesses. You should know this trouble isn't your fault, but it wears your shape. I walk through rooms filled with gold and strategy, and none of it distracts me from the way you taught me what weakness feels like. You were never supposed to matter this much. You were never supposed to reach this deep. Yet here I am, ruling people who fear me, while one memory of you still controls me without trying. I don't call you because I respect the distance you chose. I don't show up because love isn't ownership, even when it hurts like it is. But don't mistake my silence for peace. I'm in trouble because I learned how to feel too honestly with you, and now everything else feels like a performance. Smiles here are rehearsed, loyalty is negotiated. With you, nothing was calculated, and that's exactly what ruined me. If you were standing in front of me, I wouldn't ask you to stay. I wouldn't beg. I'd just let you see the cost of leaving a prince who loved without armor. I'm still standing, still ruling, still breathing, but something essential never recovered. So yes, I'm in trouble. Not because I'm weak, but because even now, talking to you like this feels like the only truth I have left. I carry this trouble like a second crown, one no one can see, but it weighs more than the first. In the palace, they read my posture, my silence, my pauses between words, trying to guess my next move. None of them know the real threat isn't politics or betrayal. It's you. It's the way one thought of you can undo a day of discipline. I learned how to rule men by fear and loyalty, but you taught me how fragile control really is. You were never meant to stand against this world of stone and calculation, and yet you did without trying. You walked into my life without strategy, without armor, and somehow that made you the most dangerous thing I've ever faced. The palace taught me to anticipate attacks, to close doors before they're tested. You slipped in through the one place I never guarded. That's the trouble I can't correct without destroying something human in me. Every night when the corridors finally go quiet, I talk to you like this, not because I expect answers, but because silence feels like surrender. I don't ask you to come back. I don't ask you to forgive me. I just need you to exist somewhere outside my head, even if it's only in these words. Power taught me how to command. You taught me how to confess. I've seen men lose kingdoms for less than this feeling. I understand them now, not because love makes you weak, but because it makes you honest. And honesty has no place in a palace built on masks. You saw me without them. That's why losing you wasn't just personal, it was structural. Something in me cracked, and now every decision echoes through that fracture. You should know, I didn't choose duty over you because it mattered more. I chose it because it would survive me. You wouldn't. You were too real for these walls, too alive for a life measured in consequences. Loving you here would have turned you into another sacrifice. Letting you go was the only way to keep you untouched by what I've become. Sometimes I wonder if you remember me as the prince, or as the man who almost forgot he was one when he was with you. I hope it's the second. Titles fade, power shifts, but the version of me that spoke to you without calculation, that one deserves to be remembered, even if I don't. If that's all I am to you now, it's enough. So yes, I remain in trouble, not lost, not broken, just altered. I rule with steadier hands now, colder eyes. But somewhere beneath the crown and the silence, I still speak to you. Not to be saved, not to be followed. Just to stay human in a place that demands I forget how. I learned something dangerous after you left. A man can survive losing love, but he never survives becoming untouched by it. The palace tried to fix me after you, wrapped me in routine, drowned me in duty, surrounded me with faces that bowed instead of looked back. It worked on the surface. Inside, I stayed exactly where you left me, not frozen. Aware that everything I rule means less than the one thing I couldn't keep. You don't know how often I almost harden completely. How close I come to letting this place finish the job you started by leaving. It would be easy. The palace rewards cold men. It crowns them. But every time I'm about to cross that line, I remember the way you listened, not to the prince, but to the pauses between my words. You heard what I never said out loud. And once someone hears you like that, you can't pretend you're only made of steel. This trouble follows me into decisions I pretend are rational. I choose alliances and sentences carefully, but there's a part of me that still measures everything against you. Not whether you'd approve, whether it would make me unrecognizable to the man you knew. Power keeps asking me to become less human. Your memory keeps answering back. That argument never ends. It just gets quieter. I don't hate you for leaving. Hatred would be simpler. Hatred would give me somewhere to put this feeling. But you didn't betray me. You escaped something that would have eventually consumed you. I see that now. Loving a prince inside a palace like this is slow erosion. You chose air. I chose walls. We both paid. Sometimes I imagine you living a life where no one watches your steps, where love isn't negotiated or weighed against consequence. That thought hurts, but it also steadies me, because if you're free, then at least one good thing came from what we were. I don't need to be part of your future to accept that my past with you mattered. This palace still stands. I still rule. I still wear the face they expect. But there are nights when I take the crown off and feel the silence rush in. And that's when I speak to you again, not as a king, not as a symbol, but as the man who loved once without strategy. That man still exists, barely, but enough. So if this trouble never leaves me, I'll carry it with discipline, not regret. I won't let it turn into cruelty. I won't let it rot into resentment. You were not a mistake. You were a revelation. And if this palace ever takes everything else from me, it won't take that truth. That's where I draw the line. Even here, there are days when I almost convince myself that I've mastered this trouble, that I folded it neatly into discipline and routine. I sit on thrones, sign decrees, decide fates with a steady hand. From the outside, I look finished, complete. But inside, I know the truth. I didn't overcome you. I organized my life around the space you left. Everything I do has a quiet margin where your absence lives, unchallenged and permanent. You would laugh if you saw how careful I've become. Not cautious, careful. Careful with words, with promises, with the way I let anyone get close. You were the last person who walked into me without permission. Since then, every connection feels negotiated, every emotion filtered. The palace calls that wisdom. I know better. It's just survival dressed up as maturity. I never tell anyone the hardest part isn't missing you. It's remembering who I was when you believed in me without conditions. You didn't admire the crown. You questioned the man wearing it. You didn't soften me, but you made me honest. Losing that mirror changed the way I see myself. Now I look and see a ruler first, a man second, and I wonder if that order can ever be reversed again. At night, when the walls feel closer than usual, I replay conversations we never finished, not arguments, truths paused mid-breath. I imagine telling you how I chose duty, not because it was noble, but because it was predictable. Loving you wasn't. It required courage I didn't know how to sustain inside a system designed to punish it. That failure still sits with me heavier than any crown. If I sound calm now, it's because I learned how to speak without bleeding. Don't confuse that with healing. Healing implies closure. What I have is containment. I keep this feeling where it can't damage anyone else, least of all you. You deserve a life untouched by my compromises. Knowing that is the closest thing to peace I've earned. I wonder sometimes if you feel lighter because you left, or if some part of you still tenses when you remember me. I don't hope for pain. I hope for truth, that what we were wasn't erased by distance or rewritten into something smaller. Even if I'm only a chapter you don't reread, I want it to remain honest on the page. So I continue, I rule, I endure, I speak to you in the only way that doesn't demand anything back. This trouble doesn't own me, but it keeps me awake, keeps me human, keeps me from becoming exactly what this palace wants. And if that's the price of loving you once, I pay it quietly, every day without asking to be forgiven.